IB Nation Sports Talk up rolling Wednesday. That means Mailbag Day. He's Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers. I see Ryan Roberts is just checking in as
Right on
well.
time.
But it is here, man. It's Mailbag night.
It's
It.
Wednesday, baby. It's Wednesday.
Yes.
Ever closer to the blue gold game, the weekend, all the glory that is that. So excited about it. It's gonna be a little cooler on Saturday, by the way. I don't know if you've looked at the weather forecast.
Just looking at the forecast today to see what it's gonna look like.
And a little chilly.
Yeah.
A little chilly. I got track meet I got to go to in the morning where it's going to be a lot chilly. And then it does warm up to a degree, but it is not going to be as nice as it was this past weekend. That's for sure.
True. Well, we've got a lot of got a lot of questions lined up and ready to go. DK being very nice. Can you answer all of Salty's questions first before his wife makes him do what she wants? Salty does have a lot of questions in there as usual. If you're just jumping into the chat, bring your questions. And of course, as we've been asking lately, loyals, hit the like button. As USMA 87 said the other day, even disloyals can hit the like button. We appreciate it, though. Be thumbs up.
That's right.
That's right. We've, I've mentioned, fishy stuff going on with the like-dislike ratio, but I have noticed last couple days since we've asked our loyals to hit that like button, some things have straightened out. So if you ask me, it's working. The plan is working. Whew. I love it when a plan comes together.
Seriously, you're not wrong. You are not wrong, sir.
All right, so we'll accommodate DK. Let me see. What is Salty's? Again, he's got a million questions in here. There was one that I thought that would make sense to lead off with today, since the news broke about the new facility, the football facility over there at Notre Dame. Yes, Football Scoop had the story. Apparently, they're going to unveil the plans to the media before the Blue Gold game Saturday for what exactly this is going to look like. And Salty says Notre Dame will share pictures of the new facility during the Blue and Gold game. Have you seen it? And what are its features? Have not seen anything.
Nothing.
I have only heard from various sources like what this is going to look like. And when we talked about it, it's been a couple months since we brought it up. I think it might have been a mailbag show. But from what I understand, all this new stuff is going to, now, again, we're going to get the stuff on Saturday, so it could end up being completely different than this, because you know how things change, especially at Notre Dame. But
I'm very curious about it.
From what I understand, it is going to connect the Goog and, run through where the current outdoor tennis courts are, and all that space that has, that is currently the indoor tennis facility over there. All that is going to end up being part of this new football facility. No idea where
so much room.
Tennis is going to be relocated and everything else. But that was my understanding. The last I heard was that, it would connect the Goog and run all the way through all the tennis facilities over there. So we'll find out, though, for sure on Saturday. But no, we have not seen any of those renderings.
That will triple or quadruple the size of the Goog.
Yes.
If that is what they actually end up doing throughout that entire footprint that you were referring to. That's a lot of space. I don't remember exactly how many tennis courts are out there, but I think there's 8 or 10. And then the indoor facility has, I think, 8 courts in it, 4 on each side. So that's a lot of space, man. That's a lot of space. Now, the indoor tennis facility has been there for a long time, so I'm sure they're ready for an upgrade as well. And so wherever they end up putting that, I'm not exactly sure how that's all going to go down and, what that process looks like.
That was the question when some people had told me kind of what the plan was. That was, my question, where's tennis going to be? And the answer was that was part of the kind of the problem that they were still trying to work through at that point. Now, this has probably been, like I said, a couple of months since I really spoke to anybody about this. But, but people asking, is there going to be a chef? Hell, I don't know if there's going to be a chef. I mean, there's going to be a new kitchen facility. And that's going to be part of it as well. The ability to feed not just the football players. That is going to be part of it. But, again, from what I understand, because there will be a new, kitchen facility, cafe, whatever over there, that feeding other athletes will be part of this as well. And that has been a big part of the overall, how they accommodate all these student athletes that they have over there on campus. And this will be because you've got, the dining facilities and different, it's like, this is on this side of campus, this is on this side of campus, all those different things. They're going to be able to do a lot, it sounds like.
So it's going to be interesting. I think I've heard that it's going to have a different name. It's not going to be called the Goog. It's going to be called something else. I've heard a million different things, and we'll see.
I'm sure there are a few, there's at least a donor whose name is going to go on this thing, if not more. So, or, it could be like the IAC where there's a whole wall full of names of donors who contributed, to make that happen inside the facility as well.
Yes.
Okay, another salty question then. Blue Gold game cometh. What are the things you most like to do that day, and will there be an IB tailgate? I most like to go to the game, watch the game,
go home,
report on the game, and go home.
Yeah. Honestly, is it fun to watch football? Sure. The Blue Gold game to me is always a letdown. I'll be honest with you. It is not that exciting. I've been to too many of them up to this point, and I realize those are first world problems as far as, fans would love to do that, right? But Blue Gold games are boring. I'm sorry. They just are. A lot of times it's not the smoothest football because you got a bunch of guys playing together who haven't played together before, with different teams, like first, second, third teams, all kind of mishmashed together and everything with the draft that they're going to have tomorrow morning. And I don't know. I just always, like in the past, I would go super excited for the Blue Gold game, and I would always leave disappointed. So I go with zero expectations into the Blue Gold game now. And if something fun happens, then fantastic.
And like we've talked about, again, I understand why they do this draft and that it's like kind of, fun for them and team morale,
fun for the players,
different stuff. And they've done other 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2 scrimmaging, just like we saw last Saturday. And this is more the Blue Gold game since they switched to this format. And again, it's their prerogative. They can do what they want. But to me, it just carries less meaning because you have all these guys mixed in together, So like as we said, going into the Jersey scrimmage last week, we got more out of that because you had true 1s versus 1s and that kind of thing than I think we're going to take from this. But it doesn't change the fact that people are still going to overreact to something that they see on Saturday.
It's a guarantee. And
yes,
we as a media entity, right, as media in general, we all got to overreact to CJ Carr, on last Saturday, right? Or we got to report on how well he played, and then the overreactions there began. Now everybody's going to have an opportunity to see what everybody's doing, and the overreactions will be monumental, both positively and negatively. Look, the Blue Gold game in my mind is the junior jabby game. Like that's what the Blue Gold game is to me. Okay. Like somebody is going to ball out that will never have a significant impact on Notre Dame on an actual Saturday in fall. Like that's what the Blue Gold game is to me. It's a chance for these guys to go out in the stadium, have some fun, obviously play some football, but the outcome just doesn't matter in any way, shape, or form.
Concur. Okay, one more salty question, then I'll start mixing some others in here.
Okay.
It says, seems there are a good number of edge rushers in the portal. Not sure about Viper. Which positional need is the greatest for Notre Dame?
Ideally, if you had everybody to pick from, I think offensive tackle would be a positional need for Notre Dame right now. If there was a starting caliber tackle out there, I would make a run at that kid, whoever that kid is. Let's see here. Other than that, I would look for a depth piece in the secondary. I think
corners is the biggest need.
Yeah,
to me, I think. But I can understand right tackle because it's the least for sure, least solidified spot on the line as we
Right.
approach the end of spring, getting ready for the
For
summer.
sure.
That's
And
going to be the biggest question mark.
Those
they've
guys
got on
have
the
room to grow. I mean, those guys have room to grow, and they'll probably end up being just fine. But that is someplace I would look, right? And I know we're going to get into this later, but I think punter is a very big position that they need to go after in the portal.
Oh, right. Interesting. Vince back in the punters. I see. Okay.
Of course.
So hold on. So
I'll wait.
Because Joe has a question about that.
Ooh,
Let's be fair to Joe's. He says, should Notre Dame pursue the portal for a punter or go with the captain?
No, there you
That's
go.
the preferred walk-on. Eric Goins, I'm assuming, is who he's talking about. The Citadel, who was a captain in the U.S. Army after leaving the Citadel and now is back at Notre Dame getting a graduate, working on a graduate degree. So Vince says,
I say 100% you look for a punter, because the options that they have on the team right now, I don't think are very good options. We saw Goings kick one time. Now, granted, it was one time. I was not impressed. And then if you go back and you look at his stats when he was at the Citadel, he was the full-time punter for one season at the Citadel, which was his sophomore year, which is 2013. Okay. And he averaged 40 yards a punt. That's not very good. And if you were upset with the way Bryce McPherson punted, he averaged 45 yards a punt. Okay. And so
were people upset with how Bryce McPherson punted?
Well, I heard a bunch of crap out there in the last last day or two.
Of course. Good riddance.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
One of the media people tweeted out there, the punter's a little too big for his britches now. Like, okay.
I saw that.
Come on, man. Like, I heard rumors that he was beaten out for the job. Now, I don't know that I believe that particular rumor, but that I heard it from a solid source. So
beaten out by who? Like,
exactly.
Goins?
That's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Again, we didn't get to see a whole lot of them, but
look, Bryce McPherson, and I know nobody out there outside of people like me who are a parent of a specialist pay attention to this kind of stuff. Okay. But I'm just going to put it out there. Bryce McPherson was the #1 rated punter in his class, and it wasn't close. Like, it was him and everybody else. Like, he was the top dog, and it wasn't close. And Notre Dame ended up, bringing him in on a full scholarship and all of that. And the fact that he's transferring after, 2 years with 3 years of eligibility left because he was obviously injured his freshman year. I mean, he was slated to start his freshman year. And then he got hurt and John Sott took over, right? And so I am shocked, to be honest with you, that he's in the transfer portal. But I also heard from another person that if you want to go to the NFL, punting at Notre Dame is not necessarily the way to go because of the way they do their punts, the way they scheme their punts. It doesn't set up nicely for stats. Okay.
Interesting. So maybe Bryce McPherson is eyeing farther down the line
next level
with that kind of aspiration. If that's, if people are kind of putting that into their ear. I mean,
Notre Dame's not going to punt very often.
But shouldn't NFL, just like with anything else beyond just stats, shouldn't an NFL scout who knows what he's looking at be able to tell a legit punter from a not legit punter, regardless of
you would think so. I push back,
sets up their punts and that kind of stuff.
I push back on that as well with that exact same line of thinking to this particular individual. And let's just say that this particular individual in his own mind is never wrong. So it wasn't much of a conversation. It was a lot of talking at me. But this person studies specialists and that's their life. And so I was just kind of a let's agree to disagree kind of a thing. But when I mentioned it to this person, and he was not surprised in any way that McPherson was going to the portal because of the way Notre Dame does their stuff. I was like, okay, interesting. So I guess we'll see. Somebody said he was on scholarship, so maybe Notre Dame just wanted to push him out to gain another scholarship. I don't see that being the case at all.
Whoever ends up punting, if it's one of the they're not just going to throw a walk-on out there, I don't think, and not give him a scholarship. If the guy is out there contributing to the team, I think they'll give him a scholarship. I don't think this is an effort to whittle down to the 85. I don't think that's what this is.
I don't think so either.
You basically got to account for scholarships,
right?
For your kicker and your punter.
Every school out there, scholarships their starters. I mean, that's just how it works. I mean, every coach that I've talked to in the recruiting game is like, hey, we'll bring you in as a PWO, and then whoever wins the job, whether it's kicker, punter, snapper, you're getting a scholarship. That room has 3 scholarships.
And I mean, if it is Goins, are you really not going to give a scholarship to the guy who served his country and who is now out there punting at Notre Dame on national TV every week?
Well, I think.
No, think about it. Think about that.
I'm pretty sure he's going there for free anyway with the GI Bill. So I don't know that you need to scholarship him. He's kind of a special case, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
I can't. I mean, he's already been to college, so I don't know that he's necessarily like GI. I don't know how.
Okay, fair enough.
It sets especially because he was an officer as well. It sets up different for everybody in terms
That's
of
fair. And you know more about that stuff than I do.
Get back. Yeah.
If he's paying for school in any way,
like he could have,
he's your starting punter, you scholarship him.
Right. When he went into the Army the first time, he could have had like any. Like I guess he probably was on a football. I'm just talking out loud here, but
sure.
Like he could have had loan repayment, for example, when he went into the military the first time. There's a lot of a lot of different ways that it sets up depending on where you are, and in that whole. It just
at the end of the day, if he's paying a dime to go to school at Notre Dame and he's the starter, then you put him on scholarship. Like that's 100% how I feel. If he's just like Drake Bowen is obviously on football scholarship and he doesn't take anything away from the baseball team. You know what I mean? And so there's no point in putting him on a baseball scholarship because he's already on a football scholarship. Like if he's already on the free whatever, no, you don't have to put him on scholarship. I just don't. From what I saw in one practice, but from what I saw from him and looking at his stats, I would be shocked if that's their play. I would be shocked. Now, maybe he can prove me wrong, but he wasn't a good punter 10 years ago. I don't see how all of a sudden he is going to be. Like that would be surprising to me. That's not how the body works. You know what I mean?
No.
Generally.
Although he is older and theoretically stronger, more like because of the fact that he's 10 years down the road. Like he,
I was not stronger at 30 than I was at 20. That's me.
Well,
that's me.
Well, you also weren't in the military and, working out. And,
okay. Fair enough.
That's what I'm saying.
Was it the Citadel? It's kind of like a little military school, isn't it? I assume they're working
right. But
there.
You're still going into your 20s. Your body is still going to physically progress if you're still working out and conditioning and all those different things. Look, we've both watched him punt. Neither one of us was overly impressed with what we saw. Now, again, that's a small snapshot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love, if he ends up being the starting punter for Notre Dame, that story is unbelievable. It's awesome. You can ride that story through the national media. It would be fantastic. But we're talking about a guy, the last time I saw him with my own 2 eyes, we're talking about a dad bod guy who was kicking very short punts.
Right.
So
and here's, and there's, again, we don't know, there's varying, like USMA 87 was obviously he's a West Point guy. So he's been through the military. But my point is even if you're getting the GI Bill, you have to be enrolled in degree seeking in order to get those payments.
Sure.
But your money does not get sent to Notre Dame. It gets sent to you. And then you
pay Notre Dame.
No, well, yeah. Then you do what you want with the money.
I see.
After the fact, you don't have to give it. For me, I paid tuition. I paid rent with it, and with the checks that I got every month. But again, I was undergrad seeking, and the USMA 87 is saying, well, because it's a graduate degree, it might not apply the same. I don't know. But my point is, he could still get a scholarship, and if he's getting GI Bill money, he could pocket that money and basically have spending money.
Sure, and he's got a family to support.
It is not. You only have to be degree seeking and enrolled in the school. It is not necessarily earmarked to go directly to the school that you're attending.
Look, and he's obviously a full-time student. He's a full-time football player, and he's got a family. And so any extra money would be fantastic because he's out, he doesn't have a job. I wouldn't imagine, right? So that would be awesome if you can use that money to like go to the family and take some pressure off, in that way. So that would be great. Like I said, that story would be unbelievable. I hope it's true, frankly, because I
do think they need to go out and
guy,
get a punter if they can, though.
Yes, agreed.
I think we agree on that.
Yes.
USMA 87, over under on the number of names Vince mentions when talking about the portal. And I know you were listening to part of yesterday's
you're
rapid
mistaking
fire,
me
Vince.
for somebody else.
Jesse just could not take the foot out of his mouth with the names that he wanted to blurt out yesterday when you was citing examples.
So funny. I was laughing pretty hard in the car as I was listening.
Stop saying names.
Yeah, he just couldn't help himself. He just could not help himself. Like he would be talking and just dancing around, and he's like, I'm just talking about Steve Angeli. Like, it was hilarious. I was laughing so hard. It was I could just see it in my eyes, like just his mind working the way it was and the gerbil on the wheel. But yeah.
So Coleman is asking if Aiden Gobira is going to transfer. He said he was one of his favorites from the 22 class. I mean, the way we've handled this is,
I don't know.
One, we don't know. Two, even if we knew for sure,
right,
we let these guys, just like with recruiting, we let them make their own announcements. So
exactly,
we wouldn't go too far into that. Yeah.
Look, I realistically don't know who's going to be entering the portal. I'm not as dialed in as some other people. So it's not like I'm keeping something that I know. I don't know anybody that's hitting the portal. But at this stage in college football, no one would surprise me at this point. I shouldn't say that. The majority of the people that hit the portal would not surprise me. Okay. And so I got nothing. I've got a couple of inklings, just my own, because they have to get down, right? I think I wonder if Brian has updated the recruiting or the scholarship chart, but the bottom line is they still have to get down to 85. And so the guys are going to be leaving. I mean, that is a definite, that is happening. Okay. And so, we'll see. But again, after last time this year, right, with Logan Diggs bailing and some other big, like, nothing would surprise me. I hate to say it at this point. You know what I mean?
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree. And kind of on that same subject, USMA asked, we're surprised that only one player has hit the portal at this point.
Two.
Clarence Lewis
and McPherson.
Right.
Well, that's two.
But I mean, we knew about Clarence Lewis a couple weeks ago. I guess technically it's still two. But
true.
Yeah.
No,
I think he was referring to since the portal is open.
Okay, fair enough. No, I am not surprised because I would not expect most guys to leave before the blue gold game. Now, starting on Sunday, it would not surprise me to see more names obviously jump into the portal. Okay. And honestly, if you're a graduate and you can wait until the summer. Now, there's going to be less spots opened up at that point, but I expect to see kind of an onslaught of guys taking off after the blue gold game.
Correct. And I would imagine that it'll happen pretty quickly after the blue gold game. Like, by like Monday night, we'll probably know who.
Monday show is going to be fun, because I bet we're going to be talking about a lot of guys.
Will we talk more portal? Will we talk more blue gold on Monday?
That's a good question. That is a really good question. I guess my Pollyanna view of things, I hope we're talking more about the blue gold game than we are about portal.
I do
people,
too,
because that means that there was some serious names in there that we have to talk about. So I hope we're talking more blue gold game, but it wouldn't surprise me if we were talking portal. You know what I mean? And who Notre Dame could get and who they lost. And because look, Notre Dame's going to lose guys, but they're also going to be looking for some guys too. And so I think they're at 88 scholarships off the top of my head with McPherson leaving. And so you at least need to lose 3. I wouldn't be surprised if you lost 5 or 6. That way you've got some, little bit of an angle to bring in a couple of guys as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm counting, like, in my head, like at least 4 or 5 that would not surprise me.
Yeah, fair enough. Absolutely. And
it's the ones who do surprise
right.
you that kind of end up. Yeah. And so on that scholarship number, what would happen if the deadline to get to 85 players approaches and there are more than 85 on scholarship?
Do you know the answer to this? Because I don't. It's never been a problem. So, I mean, they have to be there.
It always takes care of itself.
Yeah, always.
Right. And like we heard in those sound bites from Marcus Freeman and Gino Gadula yesterday about honest conversations with the players and all that kind of stuff. And so we know that those conversations have taken place.
Sure.
And I don't think it'll be an issue. I think that they'll get to that, like there are guys who are going to leave who they've had the conversations with about like, it's in your best interest to leave, those kind of things. That's going to happen. Now, obviously, if you got into training camp and you're sitting at 8, like, would they let it get to that?
I don't think they would. I don't
think so either. Because
again, it's
just
always
never been
worked
in that
out.
position before.
Yeah, it's always worked out. You might have a medical retirement or things of that nature. Like it's never been a problem. I don't remember. I've been covering the team with you since 2004. And
I think what would happen
never happened
because I think this has happened. Not pushing into training camp, but it might be like you said, medically retire, and you might even use air quotes around that. Like
right,
the scholarship would still be honored, but you wouldn't be on the football team.
Correct.
Kind of
Correct. Yep. And that's what those medical retirements are there for. I mean, teams use them in a very shrewd way, I would say, to make sure that, hey, look, you're still going to get your degree. You're still not going to be paying anything, but we really need to use this scholarship for somebody else.
Yes.
So
DJ, thanks for the super chat. He says, just waving hello, Forrest Gump style. We appreciate you. Vince gave him the Forrest Gump.
Tried. He's got the hand on the back,
Tommy wants to know what position group's going to lose the biggest name.
I mean, this kind of, I guess, lets the cat out of the bag for where my head's at, but I would say wide receiver and offensive line. Those are the ones off the top of my head.
I would agree with that. I'm trying to think. I would agree with that.
There's a lot of offensive linemen, and so I think you're going to lose some numbers there as guys start to kind of see the depth chart, right? And I think there's some wide receivers who are getting passed up or just aren't going to be playing. You know what I mean? And I could see some guys leave that room just from a playing time situation.
It wouldn't surprise me
in
the least bit if that happens. Those two, like, it's amazing when you sit back and you go look at the roster online and you see the number of offensive and defensive linemen they have. Now, obviously, because you have 5 offensive linemen and you have 4 defensive linemen, obviously you're going to have more numbers there. And, like you've got different positions within them, but still, it's just amazing how many linemen there are. But there are some veterans on there, and I think that you could see some movement coming up at both those positions. Wouldn't surprise me in the least bit.
Yep. No doubt. And look, everybody's saying quarterback in the chat. It would not surprise me if somebody from the quarterback room, took off, and that would be a big name. Any one of those 4 guys, it would be a big name leaving. So yeah, you could add quarterback to that list. That would be
true.
Fine.
It's so hard to really get a feel for what those guys are thinking, like especially with that group.
I know.
When you look at Riley Leonard's injury situation right now, there's a potential, like your odds are with what Riley Leonard's injury situation has been for the last calendar year, odds are at least 2 quarterbacks are going to play next year. Mm-hmm. So there's playing time for whoever the number 2 is.
And that
when you break camp. But playing time possibility.
I think the biggest question mark now is who's number 2. You know what I mean? And that's going to go a long way to decide who stays and who goes. Whoever is listed as the number 2 inside the Goog, because they're not going to tell us. Whoever's listed as the number 2 inside the Goog will stay. Whoever's listed as number 4, I think goes. I honestly, and whoever that may be,
Well, if it's CJ Carr is still
it
number
won't
4,
be.
he's not going
It won't
anywhere.
be. It
Yeah.
will not be. I'll just say that.
You don't
CJ
think
Carr's
he'll
not going to
still
be number
4 is what you're saying.
He is not going to be number 4 in a realistic world inside the Goog. He may be on every depth chart that they send out to us from now until August 15th or so, but he is not the number 4 quarterback.
Well, and again,
CJ Carr's not going anywhere.
It goes to what we were talking about with Gaduli and how these guys know where they stand because of the grades that they get every day. We played that from Gino Gaduli yesterday. They know what it actually where they stand among those other guys. I think that it's a fair point because the odds of getting out of spring and into the summer with all 4 of those guys together is probably pretty slim.
I think having 4 scholarship quarterbacks is ideal, but not realistic in today's world. You know what I mean? This isn't like Joe Montana when he was here and there was 18 quarterbacks or whatever. There's like a ridiculous number of quarterbacks like back in the day, that they had to fight their way through because there was no scholarship limits, and all these different things. And
but the thing is, I don't see where they are right now. I don't see, and I'm leaving CJ Carr out of this. I'm just looking at Minchie and Angeli.
Sure.
I don't see either one of them going someplace of a somewhat comparable level, like another Power 5 place, and being a starting quarterback this fall.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. So you got to look at it. So do I go someplace else and try to compete to be the starter, or do I stay at Notre Dame? The whole get your degree thing. We can talk about that if you want, but if we're just talking about football, and compete to be the number 2 for a quarterback who you may or may not think is injury prone, who, you know what I mean? Or has the tendency to be a runner and all those different things. And so, do you want to get tape? Right. I wonder whoever the 3 and 4 are, who aren't one play away from being on the field, how they perceive the situation, whoever the 3 and the 4 are.
Vince, do you know how to screenshot? Can you screenshot what DK is saying here by any chance? I left my phone in the other room. He says, no quarterback will transfer this year. If I'm wrong, I'll ban myself for 3 weeks or pay a $100 super chat.
I got it saved. It's on the screen. It's on the desktop. I got it.
Okay. All right. You keep that.
I've got it. It's not going anywhere.
Like I said, by this time next week, we should long know the answer to that.
You can just, you know what? You don't even have to give a super chat. Just put a whole hundo in an envelope, and I'll give you the address at Penn High School.
I was going to say, just slip Vince 50 and me 50, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be good with that right there.
But yeah, just put 2 50s in there, and it'll be easy that way. Easy peasy, baby.
We'll just pay Jesse $50 for blurting out who he thinks is transferring. Speaking of DK, Riley Leonard's stat projections. What do you got Riley Leonard doing?
This is a sucker question because I'm terrible at this. I'll be the first one to admit it. I'm terrible.
I'll be the first one to back you up on that.
I'm always too high for everything. That's just who I am.
You're giving everybody Heisman numbers. Every year we try to make stat projections.
That's why I hate this. I hate this game. I hate the game. Look, Riley Leonard should be 2,500 yards passing and 750 yards rushing.
I was thinking in that same ballpark, somewhere around 2,600 passing, 800 rushing. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what he does rushing because of the fact that what you've got in the backfield as well. But I think he'll have a little over 20 touchdown passes, maybe 7-8 interceptions, something like that, and probably run for another 10 or 12 touchdowns, somewhere in that range.
Yeah,
I think
Jason Smith. Woo! He's putting up some big numbers.
What's he got him doing? 3,200 and 750. Through the roof. Through the roof.
Tommy Guns is just being Tommy Guns.
Here's the legitimate question. Over under on the number of games Leonard plays in. Good one, TD4ND.
Well, what are you setting it at? TD at 4ND, you got to set the number. Are you setting the number at 10.5 or 11.5? Where are we putting the number?
USMA says 8.
Ooh, I think
Is that the over-under, or is he just saying 8 games he's going to play in?
He's saying 8 games that he's going to play in, I think. I would set the number at I'm between 10.5 and an 11.5.
I think I would set the line. If it's me, I'm setting the line at 9.5. That would be my over-under. What do you think of that?
I'm taking the
number?
over. Taking the
You're
over.
going over on 9.5?
Yeah.
So you think I set it too low? 10.5?
See, that's when I start like hesitating.
10.5, you're only missing 2 games if you're you know what I'm saying?
Well,
like,
you got a bowl game.
If he gets to 10. Oh, that's true.
You're guaranteed a bowl game. Look, this team's not losing 7 games.
Well,
I'm just saying. I don't care what happens. You're not losing 7 games.
You're guaranteed a bowl game, but
not this schedule.
What kind of bowl game it is like, are you going to play in it or not? Are you saying you're guaranteed a playoff game?
This roster is a playoff roster. No question about it. This is a playoff roster. Now, if their whole plane goes down or something like that, then that's a different conversation. But this is a playoff roster. No doubt in my mind. So you should be playing in a bowl game that matters that guys are not opting out of. Should be. So yeah, I feel like it's at least 13.
Yeah. Andre says regular season, total season. Total season. That means potential playoff run and the whole bit. So what did you end up going with?
If it's 9.5, I'm taking the over. If it's 10.5, I mean, I'm tempted. My gut says over, but not by much, man. Like, I feel like they could hold him out of one of these, easier games, like as a precaution. You know what I mean? I feel like that could be a thing. But yeah,
this is also why, if you're Steve Angeli, as I've said before, like, one more year and he's got his degree, you stick around. And if you are the number 2, you're going to have an opportunity to play.
Oh, for sure.
An opportunity for more film if the portal is a true option for you next year once Riley Leonard is gone, if you don't end up winning the starting job. Like, I think that there's a lot more benefit potentially for Angeli to stay if he keeps that number 2 position.
I know that we're kind of going around and around here, but whoever the number 2 is, they're here. They're not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Whoever the number 2
question is going to be, who's the number 2?
Exactly.
Yes.
100%. But yeah, whoever the question mark is going to be between 3 and 4, whoever they are.
I just don't know with Leonard because that foot concerns me. I've said it before, and it's why we've both said that we wouldn't really have him doing anything at all.
I would not, no.
Even throwing, other than sit in the film room and do what he did on the sideline last week. I would not want him doing anything physical at all. But they obviously feel differently about that. They've gone with a different approach.
Yes,
again, I think you've got to kind of protect him against himself because he's overly eager to get out there, and that's part of the problem. But with that foot, I don't know how you can predict. Hopefully he doesn't miss any time, but with a running quarterback and everything that's gone on with that ankle and foot over the last 6+ months now at this point.
Yeah, it's just something they can get it right. Know. That's the problem.
Chief Brody's going over 14.5 for CJ. Okay. All right.
There we go.
Chief Brody has joined the chat. Wanted to get to a couple other ones. Coleman wants to know who we're predicting for Blue Gold MVP.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Goings.
There you go. I love it.
I'm trying to take the most unobvious person on the roster.
I'll go with Mitch Jeter.
Yeah, right. Justin Fisher. He's going to score the game-winning touchdown.
There you go.
When they've got all the backups and walk-ons in, and it's a one-score game. They're going to hand it off to 23. Justin Fisher's going to win the game. There you go.
Concur. Salty says Irish media. I think he's talking about Fighting Irish media. A lot of people call it Notre Dame media, whatever. But
yeah, it's Fighting Irish media.
The came to compete jersey scrimmage highlights are out. I haven't seen this yet. What was the most thrilling play you saw in the jersey.
Well, this has to be you, buddy, because I didn't see it.
Whew, most thrilling play. I would just go the Jaden Mickey pick six. You know, it's like, I think anytime you see that, you see a guy jump a route like that, and you've got like a big momentum shifting play right away, like jumping a short pass and going 60 plus yards. So I'll go with Mickey's pick six as my most thrilling.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I saw, I don't know how many times I saw the throw from CJ to Cam. That was thrilling just because it might be a glimpse into the future of Notre Dame football. I thought that, was a beautiful throw. Just went up there and just snagged it with both hands. Like, that was okay. I was digging that, right? But I wasn't there, so I didn't see any plays. Can I ask you a question? And I'm probably going to get harassed for this, and that's fine. Why is it called the Jersey Scrimmage?
I guess they play to get the blue jerseys or something like that. Yeah, because
I heard Marcus Freeman say something about blue jerseys.
Right.
And offense is always in blue. So if they want it, they get to keep them. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that much to play for to me.
I'm not real sure either, because it's not like it carries over into, like this weekend for the blue gold game.
Right. 100%. So
especially since you're drafting teams, and I don't know.
I've been to a million practices at Notre Dame, and I've never seen the defense in blue ever. Yeah. So I guess they're in blue now. I don't know.
So Brent says, Sean, my Riley concerns aren't of your concerns. Maybe I missed what you're talking about. I don't know if
what are Brent's concerns?
Yes. What are your concerns, Brent? Tell me your Riley Leonard concerns, and then we'll see if we're aligned on that. Because off the top of my head, it's not ringing a bell right now. I apologize if
why are you not on the same page as Brent?
I don't know.
What is wrong with you?
I don't know what happened. Usually I've got Jesse here to argue with Brent. So
it's true. I mean, he takes it personally too, man. Holy smokies.
So Brent, slip your concerns in there if you don't mind. DK wants to know if you could teleport any one former player to play on this team as a freshman, why would it be Aaron Lynch?
Man,
big Aaron Lynch fan, obviously.
Apparently, and he was good his freshman year. There's no doubt about that. And then his career just kind of, went a different direction.
Yeah, so Brent says his ankle and foot injuries are chronic. I mean,
I don't know if I would use the word chronic though. It's the same injury.
Might be a little strong because it's confined to this. What is it, like 6 month span going on a 7 month span of time? It's not like he had it before he suffered the high ankle sprain, in that Notre Dame game. Now, it is all in the same leg, and it one thing did turn into another. The question is going to be just plain and simple. Does it heal? Is it going to be healed enough for him to be an effective quarterback this year?
Yep.
I mean, like I said, it's a concern to me that he could go out there because it's a foot injury and he's got a plate in there, and it could be a big issue. But I mean, we're just not going to know one way or the other until it either happens or it doesn't. But to me, like every time the guy goes down a little bit awkwardly or some big defensive lineman comes down on him, it's I think everyone's just going to kind of be holding their breath most of the time.
Yep. No doubt. Okay. There we go.
DK wants to know, how dare you interrupt my question and Vince's answer with Brent. So back to the freshman question. I mean, Aaron Lynch is a good one, but that guy obviously didn't last long at Notre Dame. He only lasted 1 year and then he was gone.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, how about Joe Alt? Can we just bring him back?
That's a good one for a freshman.
That would solve some issues. I wouldn't mind having bookends of Charles Jagasaw and Joe Alt. Would not be upset about that.
I mean, otherwise, if you're asking me to come up with good, like big time freshman seasons, I just off the top of my head, nothing's coming to me right now.
I mean, Kyle Hamilton was pretty good as a freshman.
Benjamin Morrison had a
there we
pretty good
go.
freshman year. That wasn't
That's
even
good.
that long ago.
Right. You could have BMO on one side and BMO on the other.
Yeah.
So,
Take that. So Salty says spring transfer window opens tomorrow. What position groups could players? Did we already do this one?
I mean, we talked similarly about it.
Yeah,
I mean, the window's been open. The window's been open, isn't it? Didn't it open on Monday?
Yeah, it opened earlier this week.
Yeah.
That's why McPherson is in it. And
yes, because he is not a graduate. He finished his sophomore year.
And my Clarence Lewis has already committed to Syracuse. Salty also, though, says unlimited transfers now official. How do these work? Can a player transfer on any day, or must it be tied to semester start times? I mean, you can't. School. Yeah, you can't. You could leave potentially, but you obviously couldn't go from playing. In September, it's not going to be like pro sports where in September you could be playing for Notre Dame, and then in October all of a sudden you're playing for Michigan or something.
Right.
That. It would still
midseason free agency. Yeah, that would be. Although I wouldn't be surprised if that ended up happening someday, but it's still school. You can only enroll in school in the middle of a September or in the middle of a semester, right? Or at the beginning or the end of a semester. You can still only do that. And you can enroll at the end of a first semester, but you were not going to be eligible to play football, obviously, in the second semester when you have bowl games and things. So I don't think that I've heard that there's limits, but then I see guys transferring all over the place for multiple times. So maybe there's
that's going to be part of the deal. It's going to be, you don't have to sit. No one's going to have to sit out at all.
Yeah. I mean, DJ Uiagalelei, for example, is on his third team in 3 years. So are there restrictions? Because it doesn't seem like it.
Well, and that's the thing with the NCAA. You never know exactly what the rules are because the rules are so loose to begin with, and they enforce them at their own leisure.
Yeah,
it seems like is the biggest issue. Vince, as always, I have saved a few questions that we will get to in this next segment. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Bring it on, Sean Stars.
Right, here we go. So here's Marcus Freeman on the state of his offensive line after last Saturday's scrimmage, heading into the Blue Gold game this weekend.
As we've always said, we're an O-line, D-line driven program. So what do you want to see? I want to see them to be able to run the ball, be able to protect the quarterback, and execute their job at a high level. There's a couple competitions, right? You got a competition at right tackle. Rocco is trying to get back to being 100%. So at some point when he's 100%, you're going to have a competition with him and somewhere in the inside. And Jack Gasol has been pretty much the one at the left tackle. So you're trying to create competition, but understanding as an offensive line unit, you need that consistency in those five guys. So I'm trying to get them both, but listen, I want to see them be able to run and pass the ball.
All right, Vince. So how much will what you see from Notre Dame's offensive line this Saturday impact what you think about what we'll see from them the next time we see them in training camp? Obviously factoring in what Marcus Freeman is talking about there.
I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 3. I mean, you want to see some individual performances, and hopefully guys have good days, but it depends on who they're going up against. It depends on who they're playing next to. It depends on who their quarterback is. There's just a lot of different things. O-line is so dependent on the 5 as opposed to the singular. You can make some judgments on a guy just by watching him and, seeing him play and all of that, but a lot of it has to do with who you're playing with and who you're playing against and all of those different things. So I think you can glean some things from the Blue Gold game. It is just another line of evaluation. It is not a be-all, end-all. I'm not necessarily moving guys up or down the depth chart based on what's about to happen in the Blue Gold game.
Exactly. And I just think about what we saw last year when we thought that we had a pretty good idea of what Notre Dame's offensive line was going to look like coming out of the spring. And then a couple weeks into training camp, hey, Pat Coogan's out there at left guard and ended up starting every game at left guard last season. And the Rocco thing is the biggest factor. And that's what Marcus Freeman mentioned there. Like, is Rocco going to take one of those spots? And I think the one we're specifically looking at probably is Pat Coogan at left guard, because Billy Schrouth sure seems pretty implanted there on the right side at guard. And obviously, as we've talked about, do they go to the transfer portal for a right guard? Like, what exactly is that going to look like? That's, again, the biggest question over there. I think you've got 3 guys who can play those 2 guard positions with Coogan, Schrouth, and Spindler, but you're still trying to find one firm answer for right tackle. So I don't think there's anything that's going to happen on Saturday that's going to move me one way or the other about how I feel about it. It's all going to come down to what kind of summers they have and what those first couple weeks of training camp look like. I think that's when we're really going to see something solid happen there.
Right. Agreed.
Brent with a good quarterback question. Scale of 1 to 10, what's your comfort level with CJ Carr starting a game early in the season?
Obviously, it would depend on which game, but he said early in the season. Are we talking Texas A&M or are we talking Miami of Ohio? Like, those are two very different scenarios, okay? If we're talking, one of the MAC schools or whatever, my comfort level is like an 8 or a 9, right? If it's a Louisville or a Texas A&M or, something like that, it's like a 5.5, 6. I do feel like CJ Carr understands the offense. I think he demonstrated that on Saturday. I do think he will get the ball into the hands of his playmakers. It's not like he's going to put the team on his shoulders. I think he'll be, as a freshman, CJ Carr, he will adopt the role of a game manager in a position like that. If you're playing a lesser opponent like a Miami of Ohio or something like that, you kind of let him, you take the reins off a little bit, right? And you kind of let him play. And so I would feel fine with him doing that. I hope that makes sense.
No, that's completely my rationale as well. I would not want a true freshman going into a road environment like a Texas A&M or an Ohio State a couple of years ago, those kind of situations in your first career start, on the road in that kind of environment. So I would put that like at a 2 or a 3 in that specific situation. But if it's Miami, Ohio, or Northern Illinois, I would be up around an 8 or a 9, for what you said. I would feel completely confident in those kind of things. And then based on what he looked like in those kind of games, it could shift my confidence going forward. Look, again, he looked good out there Saturday, but he also, again, looked good against third string guys. I would like to see, he all the things that we saw from him are exactly like what you would want to see, and even beyond maybe what you even hope to see from a true freshman who's an early enrollee right now. But I would like to see him do it against, it's like the next step now. Okay, you did it predominantly against the 3s. Next step, what do you look like against the 2s? And maybe they've seen some of that, in their time doing some live stuff this spring. I doubt that he's got very many, if at all, number 1 reps, but at the very least, next step is going up against some 2s. But just the initial good feelings were there, and it's justified. But I don't want to put like too much on that right now before we see him go up against, higher level competition.
Oh, for sure.
Internally.
For sure.
I would feel, like I said, I would feel good against those MAC level teams just like you.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any qualms whatsoever. I mean, you're going to anticipate some freshman mistakes, but it's not just about CJ Carr. It's also about everybody that's around him. They have an elite defense. And I think you have I'll even be like, I'll tamp it down, a better than average offense. You know what I mean? Even with a true freshman at quarterback. So it's not like you're throwing a true freshman in with a bunch of guys that don't know what the hell they're doing. Mm-hmm. And so I think that also has a lot to do with my confidence level of what CJ Carr would be able to do. Look, some of these teams aren't going to be able to score on Notre Dame. You know what I mean? At a clip, right?
That's true too. Yeah.
So that helps. That definitely helps.
That's true. And I hadn't even really thought about it, but that's very true. And that factors into what kind of game plan that you're going to put together.
Absolutely.
And if you were in a situation where you had a young guy like that out there starting, what percentage of the depth chart do you think needs to be set when spring ends this weekend?
That's a really good question because I think the spring is for experimentation to a degree. I think that the coaches will have a pretty good idea of where things stand. Unfortunately, there's still some guys that need to come and be a part of the mix, whether you're talking about, freshmen or whether you're talking about guys like Bo Collins or Rod Hurd, right? And so I think a conservative percentage would be like 75. And I think you're in pretty good shape at that point. I think 75, you're in good shape.
Some interesting answers. John says 50%. Joe says 40%. DK, of course, against the grain, 57.8%. Yeah, I mean, I think somewhere in the 70% range.
Yeah.
70.
I purposely wasn't
75.
looking at the chat
Now,
to see what everybody was saying.
Like, does it need, does that much need to be set? I think they have to have a pretty good idea. Otherwise,
Yes. You're
what's
right.
the purpose in spring and doing everything
Absolutely.
that they've done this spring? I think that like 70% is a pretty good number because let's see, 22, like, me and my math 0. So 70% of 22 is like 15 and a half starters. So that's all but 6 starters.
That's fair.
So like, okay, right tackle, left guard, safety, which you mentioned, nickel probably not completely nailed down, right? So that's 4 positions right there. What else off the top of your head? Maybe like one of the receiver spots at least.
Because he talked about playing 6. So like, does that count as like start? You could start any one of those 6. You know what I mean? So I even think that number, it wouldn't even be 22. I think that number would be more like 30. You know what I mean? Because you got some different packages defensively. You've got different personnel offensively. And then you got the specialists. Can't forget them. And then, so I think you're looking at like 30 to 32 guys. And I would say if you've got 25 or so of those guys locked in, I think you're in good shape. You know what I mean? I do. I think you're in good shape at that point.
Andrew says he thinks the spring's about weeding people out. I mean,
to a degree.
Not completely, but with the transfer portal the way it is now,
Sure.
it has definitely shifted in that direction where at the very least you are putting guys out there and giving them an opportunity and basically saying, prove that you can do it or don't. And
absolutely.
then if you can't, you're moving on.
It's kind of is the glass half full or half empty?
Mm-hmm.
Are you weeding people out? Or are you seeing who rises to the top? You know what I mean? Either way, Andrew's correct. I mean, you're seeing who you can count on and all of those different things because once you get to fall, it's not about trying guys out anymore. It's about we're putting in the scheme and we're doing, what we need to do to get ready for the season. And that's when you figure out who the scout team is and like that kind of stuff.
And that's the luxury of spring is you can give a lot of guys a lot of different reps. I mean, there were times this spring where Riley Mills and Howard Cross weren't out there practicing with the team.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't matter.
What that did was give some of those younger guys opportunities to have reps and show what they can do.
Yes,
it's like
absolutely,
because those two are like 2 guys who need the reps less than anybody.
Oh my gosh, those guys that are like super veterans. You know what I mean? Like those 2 could be getting ready for the NFL draft right now, and so you're talking about guys like Kaiser. And even Xavier Watts, for example, like those kind of guys, they don't need the reps, right? We know they're starting. We know they're going to be an integral piece. And so get the other guys a shot in the spring. In the fall, everybody's on the field that's going to be contributing, And like I said, there's no scout team during spring, right? Nobody's relegated to the scout team during spring. That all happens in the fall. I saw that chuckle. I know what's coming.
D-Rock Irish, thanks for the reminder. Hit that like button. We do appreciate it. Bubs wants to know if we think Bo Collins, the incoming Clemson transfer, can beat out Jaden Thomas as boundary receiver.
Sure, absolutely. Why'd you bring him in then?
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple. You brought him in to compete and to play. So, yes, absolutely can. Absolutely.
Yeah. You didn't bring him in because he definitely will, but you brought him here for the chance that at least he might, and that he's going to upgrade your receiver room. That's why he's here.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be one to watch for sure. So the NCAA is scheduled to vote tomorrow on allowing headset communication between coaches and quarterbacks this season. Irish offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock recently said that they've been using headsets in practice this spring already to get ready for that possibility.
We're using it in practice, and the kids like it because it keeps me from yelling at everybody else because I got to talk to the quarterback. But I think it's got some advantages to it. I mean, some quick reminders to the quarterback once you get the play call in, provided I'm not stuttering into the headset too much. I think helps them, especially young quarterbacks, right? Hey, based on game plan, let's keep our eyes on the weak side, whatever it happens to be, right? And give them a little something to help them in their journey of getting the play executed the right way. I think that's helpful. And I think, getting them the play and the information as early as you can in the play clock gives them a chance to kind of settle in and get everybody else lined up.
All right. So again, the NCAA is voting on this tomorrow. Do you buy or sell the headset communications?
Oh, it's a huge buy. A huge buy. It's amazing to me, and yet not, because it's the NCAA, that it took this long for this to occur. I mean, there's no reason that they shouldn't have had this a long time ago. And if you're a Michigan fan, you would not necessarily still be in trouble with the NCAA if they would have put this in a long time ago. And so it takes all the sign stealing out of it. Don't have to worry about any of that crap anymore. And the only negative, and Denbrock looked at this as a positive, and I understand it from a coaching standpoint as to why it's a positive, where you can kind of coach up your guy a little bit. And I get that. But it's also, that is very like Pinocchio, like pulling the strings and like not.
But I can see college coaches. I can see college coaches want,
100%,
like liking that aspect of it.
As a high school coach, I wish we had that, and I would have been like,
sure.
Okay, I'm calling this play for a reason. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say that, but I'm like, okay, you're throwing it to the fade because we have a really fast guy and they have a not so fast guy.
Right.
Throw it there.
But that would be awesome because you could explain it to,
yes.
Look for this. And if 100%. You get this, this is what you're doing. That kind 100%. Of thing.
Yes, absolutely. So high school and college, I get it. It's just, as a devil's advocate, you could be like, well, you're not really letting your guy develop because he's not really reading the defense, and all of those different things. But from a coaching standpoint, man, and you're up in the booth, you can't even talk to the quarterback until after the series is over. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of dig it. I kind of dig it. So it's absolute buy. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, Michigan is the reason that they're doing this. Like the whole Michigan thing last year is the reason they finally,
which is crazy that it took.
But the year is freaking 2024, and there's so much other, technology that's even beyond headset communication. It's just nuts. And this is only going to be in the FBS. This won't be in the FCS, so it's only going to be FBS level. It's nuts that they haven't done this before. And because the technology has obviously been there for what, 2 or 3 decades now?
Oh my God, long time.
They've used this thing. It's been there forever. And the fact that college football has never gone to it is just insane. So I am completely for this. It negates the need to have the guys with the signs and all this different stuff on the sideline and going through all these different charades and, holding up signs and whatever else. It's just
they actually brought in coach to catcher communication a couple of years ago in high school in Indiana.
Really?
And they still don't have it for college, which is ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I looked into getting it. It was a little too expensive for us, but still,
I'm sure.
Well,
and again, that's like with all the money that is coming from TV networks.
Oh my gosh.
To these schools now, like you can't afford a couple $1,000 for headset comms.
I honestly wonder if it even costs that much, to be honest with you.
I mean, they claim that it do. They claim that it's always been a cost issue, and that's what's held it back and blah, blah, blah. But
give me a break. That's ridiculous. Literally. Especially if they're only doing it with FBS. Like, you kidding me? Like, I realize, the maybe the UABs and the Ball States of the world aren't exactly swimming in cash, but I guarantee you they could fork over the money that it takes to get a couple of speakers and a helmet. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Fill in the blank. Notre Dame men's basketball landing a commitment from Princeton shooting guard Matt Aloko. Not sure about the pronunciation. Is blank.
Well, it doesn't help that his, I believe his Twitter was like fluff or something.
Yeah, I know.
Like, there's nothing to do.
Very
with,
weird Twitter handle.
with
Yes.
his name, like nothing to do with his name. But I digress. It's much needed is what my fill in the blank is. It is much needed from the little bit I've been able to, read up on him, and our boy Tom Noy obviously put an article out about him. But basically, it sounds like he's a good shooter and he takes care of the basketball. Those are two things that Notre Dame desperately needs. Okay. They need somebody who's going to consistently score and somebody who's not going to turn the ball over. And if he can give that to Notre Dame, obviously he's a graduate. He comes from Princeton. So that part checks a bunch of boxes. But if he can shoot and he can take care of the basketball, he's a much needed commodity at Notre Dame.
And he can do both. He shot over 50% overall from the field this year, 42%, almost 43% on three-pointers. He hit 47 of 110 and nearly 91% at the free throw line. He was the only player in college basketball this year to play in at least 25 games and at least 25 minutes a game to shoot 50%, 40%, 90%. Like that, the only player in the country. So very solid in all facets, averaged double figures, and like just another need that they had. They needed another shooter. They go out, they go to the portal, they bring in a shooter. That's exactly what this team needed. So just another reason for Marcus Burton to come back next year and have somebody to pass the ball to, fill up the stat sheet.
Anticipate Marcus Burton coming back. Fully anticipate. He wouldn't have said, I'm preparing for my sophomore year if he wasn't planning on coming back. You know what I mean? And I can say this for certainty. He was offered lots of money to go elsewhere. And Notre Dame's taking care of him the proper way, and he's going to stick around. I'm not saying he's going to stick around. If he's on the Notre Dame roster, he's doing just fine. But he was offered some money to get out of here. I promise you that. I heard one school in particular.
Salty wants to know if the specialists have headset communications, or should the specialists have headset communication?
Absolutely not. That's the last thing you want, is to be in the head of a kicker or a punter. That's a scary place to be.
Like maybe the holder, like that would be.
Yeah.
There's one player on the field on each side of the ball can have.
True. This is a good point.
So,
But no, I would not want it to be the actual kicker themselves. Or a punter, because they need to be in their own world. You know, it's like for love.
You don't need Tommy Reese. Do your effing job when a kicker is lining up.
Seriously,
to attempt to kick. Right.
It's for love of the game. Clear the mechanism. You know what I mean? It's
That's
like
right,
you just need to be focused. So
yes. All right. So I came up with this. Jesse was, and I tell you what, I came up with a question I was going to ask you, but Brent is just ratting out Jesse straight up. He said punters and kickers are not really football players. So this offends you as a blank, Vince.
This offends me as the father of a specialist. I don't want to pigeonhole him as a kicker or a punter. But like, I get the argument, believe me. I get the argument. I have been to many a college practice, both at Notre Dame and others now, where we are very focused on the specialists, right? 97% of the practice, they're just off like playing tiddlywinks in the corner, doing nothing, like goofing around, whatever, helmets off, like they're just doing their own thing. And then they just get called into action and they got to sprint on, they got, kick or punt or whatever. And then they're off again. Right. So they do not go through the rigors of what a normal football player goes through. We just got a flyer in our email. This is a perfect example. Okay. A flyer in our email for next year's football team for my son in high school. Now, if you don't know, Penn High School, there are some affluent families that attend Penn High School. The D'Adarios are not one of them, first of all, but it runs the gamut of affluent to, not affluent in any way. And the Rydell specialist is coming in to, computer generate that for helmets. If you want to purchase a helmet for your child, like the state-of-the-art helmet, if you want to purchase that for your child, you can come get your head, measured or whatever. $712.50.
Really?
Sean Stiers, to get your own helmet that you get to keep, mind you, but it's still $712.
Is this going somewhere, by the way?
Yeah,
Like, what does
it
this
is.
have to do? Okay.
No. Hold on. I said to my kid, I go, you're not even dreaming about this, right? I go, you shouldn't even have to wear a helmet on
He
the
wanted
field.
it, right? He wanted you to shell
He's
out.
like, Dad, he understands it is not going to happen. So,
Okay.
But I told him, I said, you shouldn't even have to wear a helmet on the football field. Ergo, they're not real football players. I will agree with that.
Okay.
But they are needed on the football team to be successful. I think there is a fine line there.
There is.
Okay, I will say that.
Reggie, as I've said before, Notre Dame great Reggie Brooks and I used to have that conversation on the post-game show back in the days when we were doing the post-game show together. He would
He's
basically
very anti.
he would basically take the Jesse line of thinking
Yeah.
that kickers and punters are, I'm like, well, but they do kind of need them.
Good kicker and a punter can change a game, man. Like
That's right.
punter can change field position, a kicker can win you the game, all these different things.
You only care about them when they kick the winning field goal or
Right.
if they miss the winning field goal.
Yes,
basically.
absolutely.
That's the only time you care.
No doubt about that. So are they actual football players, like getting down and dirty and like two-a-days are really like, you hurt when you wake up the next morning? No, they're not. Because they don't hurt the next morning. You know what I mean? But you need them. You need them on a team. I'll just say that.
That's fair. Okay, so Tommy wants to know our opinion on WNBA salaries. Now, this is obviously very broad, open-ended. I know there's been discussion about salaries. I'll just say that, it's like as someone who's involved in women's basketball and has been for a long time, it still comes down to supply and demand.
It does.
And if the Caitlin Clark effect, makes it so that there is a lot more TV interest, there are going to be more games on TV, and there'll be bigger and better TV contracts, and that money will funnel to the players. There will also be expansion. If the crowds get bigger, the whole thing, the salaries will go up as demand.
Absolutely.
That's what it comes down to. So I'll just, stick to the facts, ma'am. That's what I'm going to go with. I mean, that's, because again, I don't know exactly where Tommy was trying to go with this, but the bottom line is for whatever sport or occupation, if there's greater demand, you've got a chance to make more money. That's what it comes down to.
Well, and the best way to put it is supply and demand, because if you bought WNBA tickets prior to Caitlin Clark, prior to knowing where Caitlin Clark was going to come out and all of those different things, you could get a ticket for like $20, right? The second she was drafted to the Fever, tickets went up to like $175.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be an example of supply and demand.
In some of these places where she's going to play on the road, even before she was drafted, started moving into, their games against Indiana to larger arenas so that they could sell more tickets and at a higher price, So
Smart.
Again, like
supply and demand,
they're going to start capitalizing on it. It's really going to come down to, again, how much overall interest is she able to help generate for this league? And if they get more interest, I think that everyone's going to be happier for it in the long run, in the form of, again, TV contracts, arenas, more people going to watch games and things like that. And higher ticket prices, it's all going to potentially mean more money. I mean, the NBA has essentially propped up this league for a long time. That's why there's only 12 teams in the league right now, even though there's more than twice as many, men's NBA teams. But if the interest in the WNBA goes up, and I mean, look, Caitlin Clark has been the catalyst for interest throughout these, this last year plus with the NCAA tournament. The interest in the draft the other night. Did you see that? A 300% increase in
Wow.
viewership. 300%.
Wow. That's
From
the
one
Caitlin
year
Clark
to the
effect,
next.
though.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, and look, she's not making a boatload of money, obviously, but if things are trending the way they're trending for her, she will make more, and she will make more in endorsements, and she will make more when she goes over and plays in Europe in the off season. You know what I mean? It's just those are just facts. So she's going to be just fine. But at the end of the day, it is exactly what you said. It's supply and demand. If butts aren't in the seats, they don't have the money to pay the players, period. Yeah. And so her rookie contract, I think it's a 4-year deal. She's not breaking the bank by any stretch of the imagination, but she's not poor either. So, I mean,
but this is also why when you hear, like when you look at the men's versus the women's game, like why more women don't come out after their sophomore or junior season. It's better for them in the long run if they stay in school, get their degree.
Absolutely.
Because again, not everyone who got drafted the other night is even going to make a team because with only 12 teams, it's so competitive and there's such a logjam just to make a roster spot on a WNBA team. It's just not worth it for these players to come out early because the money that they make is nowhere near what the men are making. And
which then makes the college game better.
Like you can say that, okay, they're playing the same game and all, the bottom line is just when the interest becomes greater and the demand becomes greater for the WNBA, they'll all start making more money.
Absolutely.
That's obviously ultimately what everybody wants.
Yep. So, I agree.
So Fox Sports is creating a 16-team event that's going to be known as the College Basketball Crown. They're going to play it in Las Vegas next year. It's going to start as March Madness is ending. It'll include teams that don't make it to the NCAA tournament. Big 10, Big 12, Big East, who all have games carried on Fox, are each going to get 2 automatic entries in this tournament, and then there'll be at-large teams selected by a committee. Scale of 1 to 10. What's your interest in the College Basketball Crown tournament?
My interest will be solely based on whether I have a team in the fight.
So if Notre Dame is there, you'll have some interest.
Everybody's predicting Notre Dame's going to be a bubble team next year. So they might be in, they might be out. And if they're a bubble team, then they got a great chance of being in this tournament. If that's the case, I will be interested. I will watch it. I don't see, with March Madness and the bracket challenges and all of these different things, I just don't see this being all that. Like I could see guys opting out at, to a certain degree because why does it matter? Well,
and they're going to do it at the conclusion of March Madness. So, I think they think that they're going to get like some carryover effect. Look, once they crown a champion, I think the interest, just like spring football, it's just going to fall off. I don't see it.
Yeah.
Especially considering they are 16 teams that didn't make it to the NCAA tournament. And there's still an NIT, so like what's even the quality level of these teams going to be? So I agree with, I think I saw John say a 1, and that would be, that would probably be my level of interest as well.
If Notre Dame's not in it, it's a 0. I'd be honest with you. It's a 0, and unless I have some sort of a dog in the fight, maybe a former player that is playing in it or, something along those lines, right? Other than that, no, there's no way I'm watching that. I'm just not. It's just like I didn't watch the NIT. I'm not going to watch it.
Yep. Jimmy wants to know my favorite Nirvana song. It's probably a little trite, but Smells Like Teen Spirit is, right there at the top. About a Girl, there's a lot of good ones, but it's just always been one of my favorites. It was, the first big hit, but it's still at the top of the list. I would have to say. I'm not, like deep cut guy like a lot of people, but
deep cut guy.
All right, Tommy had one other question that I had in here.
Okay.
At what point in one's life must they declare their fandom of a sports team before being labeled
Ooh.
bandwagon fan? Do you allow any
Ooh.
exceptions?
I mean, I think it's got to be
basically,
childhood.
I just kind of think like if you can, say you were a fan before they won, like a
Fair.
championship that came in your lifetime, maybe. I don't know. Like
Childhood, I think, is a good bet here.
Childhood for sure. If you're because
Yeah.
I think they say like whatever team you're a fan of when you're like 11, 12 years old is pretty much the team that you're
Yep.
with the rest of your life kind of
Yeah.
thing. And
I think
that's
fair.
where
Middle
I am on
school.
most of my teams.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, me too. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. The only thing that could change, like the caveats would be if you have a relative playing for a team or
this is a
maybe-
good one too. Like whatever, where you end up going to college.
Go to
whatever.
college. That's a great one. Yeah. Where
Yeah.
do you go to college? I think that's absolutely something that's important. Like I said, if my kid goes someplace, I'll be a fan of that team. Like those are all obvious ones. The only other one I can think of is if, like for Jesse, for example, he moves to Cleveland and he goes to Cavs games and Guardians games all the time. Is he a fan? I think he's just a fan of sports in general. But
Yeah.
he's kind of adopted those as his team since he lives in the city. Okay.
I'll have to ask him tomorrow just how much of an actual fan he is, because like I think it's almost more the social, like because he likes sports so much and it's basically a 10-minute train ride from where they live, to get down to both the ballpark and where the Cavs play at the arena there. It's like it's
That's
almost
right on
more
top of the baseball stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the social aspect, I think, is as much as anything. And the fact that they just like going to sports,
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely fair.
But I'll have to ask him how much he actually, I know, like because they have like the Guardians partial season tickets and all that kind of stuff, like a couple years ago or over the last couple of years, they've kind of, they would get to know the teams a little bit more and all that kind of stuff. But I think he's at the very least kind of adopted them as a second team,
right?
With the Cubs still being definite way out.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. But he definitely, there's many times he's headed to a Guardians game. You know what I mean? And I get it. There was some great deal he gets by going to these games and stuff. I have to say, if I was single or in his situation socially, I would have done the same thing, no doubt.
Joshua shooting a women's basketball question here at the end before we wrap things up. Do I think Niele will go after top portal girls like a Stanford girl or go for depth? I get that you have to be careful with playing time, but South Carolina had a 9-player rotation. They like not just pure ability. That's obviously one of the things that they look at, but they also look at fit, like personality fit and how they're going to fit in with the team and those kind of things. So, that's going to be part of it as well. Like Tamia Gardner, one of the bigs for Oregon State, is one of the players that I've seen brought up, and Niele and the staff did recruit her when she was coming out of high school. So they're going to have a pretty good idea of that kind of personality fit. So I guess I would say the answer to your question is kind of a mix of both, because like if they're going to go for a couple of bigs, for example, in the portal, which I would think that because of the situation they're in with like a highly touted incoming freshman, but also a veteran who is injured right now, you would think that they're going to go after a couple, but you're going to have to sort of balance like what those two players look like.
Sure.
Right. And, and it's the same, like I said that, they probably would like to get another guard who can hit some 3-pointers. And I say that just because, okay, KK Bransford left. I don't think you're necessarily going to, go after another player in that mold. You're going to want someone who's at least a 3-point threat, I think. Right. And
for sure.
But because there is going to be such a crowded backcourt, there's still going to be, sort of a limit, I think, to, you know what I mean? Like who's going to be interested, considering that there is only one ball to go around. So
Absolutely.
So does that make sense? Like, does that
To
explain
me it does. Yeah,
Okay.
no, to me it does. They have to be the right fit. Look, she's going to be doing a lot of ego managing. I mean, and I don't mean that in a negative way. There's a ton of talent on this roster, and you've got to be smart about how you fill those holes. And there's not many there. That's the thing. There's not many.
Right. I mean, post is going to be the biggest thing. Like, you know,
For sure.
like, and I do think that the season that Hannah Hidalgo had as a true freshman probably changes the expectation of every freshman that you have coming in
Sure.
from now on, you know, fair or not. You know, it kind of ups the expectation on Koval next year before Koval has ever, you know, stepped foot on campus. You know, she's obviously been here from a visit standpoint, but, you know, on campus, you know, from a permanent standpoint, it ups her level of expectation. But I think that you definitely need someone else that you're going to feel confident going to, you know, if you need to, in a starting role, because you need at least one other post, if not two, I think right now.
Yep. I agree completely.
Yeah. And as Jimmy said, more inside presence besides Koval. Like I've said it before, and, you know, like I know somebody on the board disagreed with me, and that's fine, but I still really like Leah Tu King from Pitt. She's a little bit undersized, but I like the fact that she just averaged a double-double in the ACC. So she's been up against good competition. She would be a grad student, you know, so the main thing that you would want from that is not the scoring from whoever you would bring in. It would just be rebounding. Go out and gobble up rebounds as much as possible. And she's someone who's proven that she can go out and average double-figure rebounds in the ACC. And it would be just a one-year player, and then you're recruiting behind that as well. So I don't know. We'll see what they do.
We will.
Yep. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here. As always, we're creeping one day closer to the blue gold game. And I think all three of us are going to be in here on Friday this week.
Ooh.
First time in a while.
Okay.
Yep. But we'll be back tomorrow, of course, as well. Hit that like button. We do appreciate it. DK says, Sean, who disagreed, give us some names. I will not name names. But go to the Champions Lounge. You can see
it's
it
right there.
well. Yeah, that's right.
Right there.
It's in the thread about Maddie Westbelt.
Ah, okay.
All right. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Hit the like button. Ivy Nation Sports Talk.